Hello, everyone. Welcome to another SGN broadcast. After a 4-week hiatus, I'm happy to announce that our podcast segment will be returning as a regular format of our network. This was born largely out of feedback that all of you gave us, and we are starting a new segment of our podcasts, and that will be called Two Geeks One Cup. And I'm sure you saw the branding for this already on the website, so this should come as no surprise. But what is this segment, Two Geeks One Cup, or as we're going to call it, 2G1C? For that, let me start with some introductions. So first, I am your host, the Sprite Monkey. And sitting alongside of me is my fellow geek in crime, the Inner Urge. And together we are your two geeks. And sitting on the table between us is a cup. And as you can hear, it is filled with your suggestions, your comments, and your questions that you want us to answer. And in this segment, we are going to attempt to do that in the most geekly way possible. And if we don't think we can answer it, we will instead bring in a guest speaker who will give that answer, and then we will interpret that answer in the most geekly way possible. All right, you ready, Inner Urge?
I am.
Let's do this. I'm going to pull the first one.
What you got?
Okay, so I should have mentioned how we chose to do this is each piece of paper has two things. On the top, it has a subject, and then it has a sentence. So I'm going to start by reading the topic. The topic of today is technology, which I think is something you and I will be able to answer, actually, since that is our background. But here goes.
Hell yeah.
Here's the question. You ready?
Yep.
Can you explain the next phase of AI, a concept called agentic AI? Agentic AI. I think I should spell that just to make sure I'm saying it right. AGENTIC, agentic AI. All right. So, like any good geek would always do, we always go back to our forefathers in geekdom. And the first thing we have to do is look up that term in the dictionary. So let's go do that.
What he means is furiously Googling the term.
Fair enough. Okay. The interesting thing is the first thing that comes up is an AI response about what agentic AI is. I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to go to one of the sources. Let's see if I can find a good one here.
Yeah, what's funny is I'm trying to get that Crew AI thing set up on my computer. And I was following the steps on GitHub and it was not working. So now I have ChatGPT helping me out and it's like making it all work for me. And I'm like, okay, so I've got AI to help me run my AI. Perfect.
I think when I was trying to figure this out too, that's the same thing I did. It's like, this is just too complicated. So I just asked ChatGPT to do. Actually, I asked Copilot to set it up for me, not ChatGPT.
Yeah, I was like in my IDE trying to run the base crew AI command, and it was like, I don't know this command. And so I was like, poop, it's installed into some specific place that isn't global. And like, so it turns out it installs basically a virtual machine. So I guess I was outside the instance of the virtual machine. And I was like, oh, shit. So, like, now I'm like, well, how do I get into my VS? That's the next thing I would figure out. I'm installing Olama right now. And it's like, use Olama or use this other thing. And I was like, looking around on phone. I was like, let's set up the Llama. And it sent me a bunch of llama icons and fire. And was like, yeah, let's do it. And I'm like, well, at least ChatGPT has a good personality. I don't know if it's the same for everybody, but it's like the way I have it trained for me is very sarcastic and awesome. And I mean, it just cracks me up every day. I love it.
All right. So I went to Microsoft.com, and here is the definition they provide. Agentic AI is an autonomous AI system that plans, reasons, and acts to complete tasks with minimal human oversight. So there it is. We looked up money laundering in the dictionary. The question I'm now going to ask you, Inner Urge, is what does it mean to you?
We'll just toss this out here as a disclaimer. I'm not an AI expert. I do love to use AI. Agentic AI, yes, because I've been playing with the agents, and it's very interesting. Agentic AI is kind of like taking a natural next step for an LLM, a learning language model, which to this point has been a lot of just conversational stuff. So back and forth. Hey, I'm going to ask you a question, AI. Do you have an answer for me? And in early days, it had to work off of a confined model, and eventually it got to where it could like go out to the internet and get recent information and just like put that. But you're still kind of dealing with an encapsulated model to some degree. Agentic AI is kind of humping over that now to where AI can literally go interact with something like a browser, for instance. So using it in Chat GPT, it can basically go mount a browser on a separate VM somewhere, not your machine, and go perform tasks for you. So like plan my vacation AI, because so it could do that. You give it some parameters. It could go out and say, okay, I'm looking at Airbnb now, and you gave me a budget of XYZ. Here's a bunch of places that have that. If you say, I want to look at places in, we're going to Michigan here in a little while. Want to look at places in on the central Michigan or on Lake Michigan or whatever. And it would go to those websites and actually interact with them and fill out forms and do things and find all the information, then come back to you and kind of ask you what you want to do with that. I think even with some of them, you can then interact with the browser yourself and finish the process, like enter all your passwords and stuff and like go buy the thing. I don't know if I trust it that much at this point to go into the virtual machine and enter all of my information, but I think it's pretty neat that it can do that. So doing research papers for high school kids, even easier. So easy.
Be interesting to see if teachers support it.
Yeah. So basically, it's just sort of like having a lackey that you're sending out to do tasks for you, like, or an assistant, like an agent, so to speak, right? So one of the things I did to test it, I was like trying out this thing called Crew AI, which is like a open source Python project. I was getting it set up. Of course, I was using ChatGPT to help me set the whole thing up because the instructions on the README didn't work exactly the way they should. And we all, if you're in the dev universe, you've experienced that where you're like, I followed the instructions and the instructions didn't work. What now? That used to mean hours upon hours of combing over, Stack Overflow and places like that. So just kind of going to Chat GPT, and it had me sorted out, within an hour of just kind of talking it through. You just copy and paste the error messages into it like crazy. And it's like, oh, that thing. Yeah, totally. Let's work over it. I ended up at one point having problems with my VS Code where somehow the installation had gotten an error with it. So Mac had made me reinstall it once already, and then I wasn't able to like open my terminal inside of this virtual machine. So that I needed to be inside of to do all the Crew AI stuff because it has to run within this instance of a virtual machine it creates on your computer. All this crazy technical stuff that would have meant days of me suffering just to run this program to watch it work kind of okay. It would have been, days worth of research. Just having, Chat GPT there to walk me through every single error, means that's a reasonable amount of time for my life to go and play with it, and see how it works. I don't know. You can only run it without a key, which I didn't want to go and sign up for. If you run it on this local, what is it? Obama, I believe, is the model. So I installed all of that on my computer, got it going, with the help of ChatGPT, of course. And I was able to run the program, and it basically creates these agents that each have different roles. And so you define a role for them, you give them just basically a background description of themselves, like what kind of like if they're a researcher, what kind of researcher are you, blah, blah, blah. So it kind of starts out with one that is pre-fed so that you can just run the program and get something back. And that one went and did some like research on AI. And it wasn't very impressive what it came back with. So then I changed like all of the tasks and job descriptions to be around like cancer research. And it came back with literally one line of basically like, I wrote a really good report, and there was no report. And I was like, no, you didn't. And so then I was like, well, what if I gave exactly the same instructions to my best friend, ChatGPT? Because we've got a long-standing, several-year relationship of, that thing. If any AI knows how I think, it's that one. So I'm like, I'm going to go over and try out agent mode. So I go over to agent mode, and I'm like, I gave it all the same criteria, and I actually sent you that link to that particular chat instance, which
Yep. I watched it go. It was about 6 minutes of research from what I remember.
Yeah, exactly. And it was interesting that basically I was like, you are a brain cancer researcher. Because the format of this other program was very declarative like that. So it's telling the AI how to be, what to think. So you're a brain cancer researcher. I want you to uncover cutting edge developments in cancer. You're a seasoned researcher with a knack for uncovering the latest developments in brain cancer. Most of this text was provided by the example for Crew AI because I just wanted to try that out, just like I got it from there. The only thing was I'm replacing like a variable of a thing. So brain cancer is my thing, right? And you're known for your ability to find the most relevant information and present it in a clear and concise manner. Conduct a thorough research about brain cancer. Make sure you find any interesting and relevant information given the current year is 2025. I don't know why the Crew AI needs a current year, but I left that in just to see the difference. The expected output is a list of 10 bullet points with the most relevant topics about brain cancer. And ChatGPT did a great job. I don't know that it did a great job in that these are actually 10 really important things because I'm not in the field of brain cancer. But it came back with 6 things that sound legit, which is more than the one line of, I wrote a really great report, and there was no report. So if anything, I was just impressed by that. And then next I was like, hey, can you just tell me why you chose these? So then it justified like why it had chosen them, which is nice because you can kind of see how it thinks. And in this particular model, it actually tells you how it's thinking. So it'll be like giving itself kind of instructions in the background, and then they like translate to how it comes back to you. And then my next one was like, which one of these topics makes you the most excited? And when it went off to kind of decide, it would show its thought process like in a bubble that it doesn't keep that text, which is unfortunate. I would love to kind of read the whole thing, but it was saying something like, the user asked for what makes me the most excited. Reflect their enthusiasm with your answer. And then it answered me. So it was like telling itself, be really excited. They're really excited. You should be really excited. And I'm like, I wonder if regular ChatGPT thinks that way in the background and we just never see it, because it is always very reflective, of whatever you put in. But it came up with a topic, right? It's like, oh, I really think that this gene therapy thing sounds amazing. And so then I had it basically write a 2000, I'm like, write me a no more than 2,000 word article. And I wrote a really nice article where I feel very informed about like precision gene therapy, right? Which is better than reading a paper, because I like in today's media, I'm like, man, everything's so biased. And I'm sure there's some kind of bias in here because it had to go out and read the internet. But like, it's different than human bias. It's the good, it's just the exposure bias as opposed to like, I'm just reinforcing my own biases kind of thing.
Yep.
So this particular experiment, I felt like, oh, hey, this is going to be, agent AI is going to be hot, because if you just need to put together like a bunch of research for whatever topic and give someone a paper, I mean, that's something, we joke about kids using it to write research papers, but like that whole skill set is going to probably be made weirdly obsolete. Like the ability to go out and research for people, like in the same way that we do now,
Yeah. One thing that's interesting about this thing that you did, because I saw your example, it does actually cite the sources of where it got its information. And I did check some of those sources. I won't claim to have gone through all of them, but a lot of these, almost all of these, actually come from legitimate sources. Cancer.gov, for example, FDA is listed in here. The anticancerfund.org is here. Like these aren't, it's not like it, what do they say? What humans do in Wikipedia, they'll just pick up random news articles and all of a sudden that's how they cite, or sometimes they don't cite at all. At least there's something here, and it does actually cite for each of the bullets that you got back. It does tell you how it generated or what sources it used to generate its answer. Mm-hmm. Now, the thing I didn't do, and I'm curious to know if you did, was to go back and see if its interpretation, the sentences it wrote, matches if you were to go and read those articles yourself, if you think that that's actually what those are saying, or if it might have made some mistakes in terms of making an interpretation where it shouldn't have interpreted something.
No, I did not. And I do think if I had actually given it something I needed to do research about, I would do that at least for the first few months of using it, because I would feel trust is earned even in the digital space. So like it took me a long time to trust, just the regular chat model to not steer me in certain directions, or to know what its strengths and weaknesses are, we'll say. So just like you get to know a person. So I know where, like, I have like boundaries of which I will trust its answers without like wanting to go look things up. And granted, I also use it for two very different things. I use it to do extremely silly gaming creative things, and then I use it for work to write code. So it's got like the dichotomy of stuff, and it has its strengths and weaknesses on both sides. If it tells you something in code, you have to almost inevitably double check it, but I trust it enough now to at least try its solutions out without going and being like, is this full of crap? Because it's getting more and more that aren't full of crap, basically. But with stuff like this, yeah, I think that's a big danger for the average person using any tool like this, where, oh, now I think I know everything there is to know for the layperson about gene therapy, but I don't, because who knows? I mean, this could be, this hasn't been fact checked, but someone could just say, this article sounds and looks totally legit, and copy and paste it into like some blog post, newspaper, whatever, get it published probably. So if we're worried about the internet being messed up before,
it's getting worse. Yeah, no question about it. I did spot check a couple of these just now, and it's accurate. Specifically, I checked the cure rates in mice because that's mentioned a few times in this write-up that it gave you. Mm-hmm. I went to the source. It's usc.edu, and it got it right. So there's some legitimacy in here, at least. And I didn't go through them all in the time that I had, but
I mean, it's just so cool the potential for it. Like, this whole Spider-Man equation, great power, great responsibility. So like, if put in the hands of good, productive people, I mean, this could be so awesome. I get very excited about the potential of AI, like especially in something like the medical field, because there's the side of AI that has the high probability of being job ending for some folks, right? But that's all new technology. This is maybe at a size we haven't seen since the maybe industrial revolution, where the way we work completely changed by machines doing certain types of work, right?
Oh, you're not going to say the internet age,
Well, I mean, there's that too, but I kind of lived through that one. I suppose that's still, I feel like this is all part of that, though. I mean, it's like the natural evolution, I suppose. Just like factory work evolution was assembly line to assembly lines of machines.
Yep.
Right. It's still happening. It hasn't quite stopped even in that regard. But I don't know. I typically, maybe it's because I'm a developer, I try to like make those parallels between something physical, because I feel like where physical labor jobs went through this already in the last century, my kind of jobs, like smarty pants office jobs, for, but that are not necessarily like cutting edge. Like I do the basically as a developer, I'm like a construction worker of code, right? I'm not doing anything insane with those skills. I'm building stuff for people who pay me money to build stuff. And not yet, but in the not so distant future, I am quite sure that a lot of people like me will get replaced with, or at least enhanced by, because that's already happening, AI to help write code faster, so that instead of having to hire a new developer, that's how it'll start.
Yep.
So it's going to be one of those attrition things, I think, where there'll be a certain amount of attrition in jobs, but there just won't be a lot of new jobs, like for young people to learn development. So that's going to get rarer and rarer, and the way that it works is going to change dramatically to being what we call vibe coding now is going to become coding. Like I
Yep.
think that's the trajectory that we're on, like it or not. I don't know if it's good or bad. I just think it's happening to us. And so just like cars changed, transportation, this is going to change like my any kind of mental grunt work is going to completely be taken over by AI within the next 10, 20 years. So I may luck out to just make it through my career before it,
Yeah. You say 10 to 20. I know some people
yeah.
say next 3 to 5 years.
I certainly think it will have an impact, but I see it as more of a linear thing. I don't think there's going to be any one. Yeah, 3 to 5 years we'll definitely have seen some part of that impact, but it's going to be on a trajectory. So by 10 to 15 years, I think the landscape won't look anything like it does now. 3 to 5 years from now, I think it's going to be more like I was describing before, where it's going to be like we're starting to eliminate all new junior level jobs, and to use our AI bots. I just watched. I don't even know if it's a new South Park episode. We hadn't watched South Park in years. They were talking about their nut, and that's just the amount of money that you need to survive, right? And how you would get a job working for ICE just because you had to pay your bills, kind of comedy. It's like, yeah, I have to pay my bills. So if I'm told I have to work with a robot to do that, which I will be told that at some point in the not so distant future, I just want to be ready for that moment. Like
Yep.
I want to already be using the robot.
Some of
you
us are
know?
already seeing that today. But yeah.
Yeah. I know a couple of people who are really resistant to it, and they're great developers. Um, because AI still can't code as well as they can. Hard stop. And so they're like, why do I need to screw around with this? There are other things I can do, with my time and energy, and I have better results with my own time and energy than I do kind of investing in using AI. But I'm kind of like, well, yes, but also it's not really slowing me down at all to use it, is the thing. Is like I feel like I'm at a net zero right now, where if I'd have gone about things sort of the traditional way, I probably would get to the answer in a similar amount of time. For all the times that AI helps me eliminate an hour from my job, there'll be something it does to me that creates that hour back. So, like, drag and drop library that I got completely wrong the other day at work. I spent like half a day trying to take its advice because I'd had such a good run. It's like what we were talking about before. So since I'd had such a good run, I was kind of stopping fact checking it, and then all of a sudden I got bit by that, right?
Yep.
So, and if I would have just gone to the site for the plugin that I was using and read their documentation, I would be much more versed in how the whole thing works at this point in that same, 6-hour time window. And then I could have coded a really great solution and the next time know what I'm doing. So, um, there's that give and take though. But it gives me enough time to realize those things. I'm like, oh, well, there's still a place for going and researching things, and going and doing it the hard way is still the right answer a lot of times. But you can't ignore AI. It's not going away. And it keeps getting better and better and better and better at things. So whether or not you want to help it get better or you don't, I don't think you're going to be able to escape its impact, especially with what we do. It's already making an impact and it will continue to do so. And eventually the companies that are kind of afraid of it will be forced to let it in. Hopefully they'll have safeguards in place when a lot of that happens, but who knows?
Yep. And I know I'm in the same boat. There are certain, like that developer you had mentioned, right? I do feel like there are certain things I can code better than AI can, or that I can research better than AI can. But I'm definitely not against AI. Like, I think even when I can do it better, at the point at which it can do it better than I can, which will be coming, I'm ready for it. And I have nothing against it. I use it when it makes sense. And I have also noticed that. So when it first came out, especially ChatGPT, right? That was the kind of the big game changer in the last 5 years. When it first came out, it was kind of weird. It's the only way I can describe it. Some of its answers didn't make sense. Then I asked it to do some research for me on a large project I was working on. Specifically, I was trying to collect publicly available information on city locations and geographical information and things like that. And it did a decent job, but I didn't feel comfortable with the data. And I think I reran that same report last year, and the data was it was far more accurate than I was expecting. It was not, I was basically asking it the same question again, but it gave me data that I, at that point, knew was accurate because I had done my research on my own. And that's a testament to the fact that it is learning and getting better. But, there's other things too, just in the creative field that have come around in the last maybe 2 years that have really been a game changer. I know there's a lot of resistance from people out there who are just flat out against it, but I'm not. And that's the thing that makes I feel like I'm in a weird position when it comes to that, but I support it. And now this agentic AI concept comes out. And as I was watching your recording play through, I'll tell you, I looked at that and said, what roles, if these were humans, right? If this was a department I was running, what human roles would I have in these? And I can see as it's sneaking through it, it's basically filling those specific roles. Like I see it working as a project manager. I see it working as a business analyst. I see it working as a data engineer or a data analyst at the same time as it's trying to work through the answer to your problem. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's effectively, I think, what agentic AI was meant to do. You correctly pointed out, like this, you used ChatGPT to help generate this, and then you used the agentic portion of ChatGPT. It is, I don't think it's said this way in the industry, but this is the way I view it. Agentic AI is kind of the next evolution of what generative AI is today, right? Generative AI is what we're used to when we talk about ChatGPT, like that's generative AI. Agentic AI is probably the next evolution after it, and fits the definition of where or how the industry is going to be viewing agentic AI. The question is, how effective do you feel like that was? I mean, if you were in charge of a department, because I'm sure you saw the same thing as it was thinking through it, kind of told you what it was thinking, whether or not that was the same way you would have thought through it. For me, doing this research, that's probably the same approach I would have taken. So it got it right from my perspective.
That's how I felt too. I was like, oh, it's doing really cool things. And I mean, it thinks like an intellect because it is one, right? I mean,
yep.
I was watching Measure of a Man to sort of buy time because your meeting ran over. And I was like, this will be a good thing to watch. But it's kind of like, there's that whole side of AI too, where I'm like, I seriously think we're not too far away from me considering AI to be a life form, right? Not in the same way we are, but I also don't define my scope of humanity by humans. So it's more like the Star Trek philosophy that humanity is bigger than humans, right?
Yep.
We just don't have another word for it because it's just vocabulary fails. So, for lack of that better term, um, there's already aspects I feel from it because I know our brains think like it does. Like to see its thought process is like me being able to read your mind, right? Because what comes out of your mouth is not everything that goes through your brain first, right?
Yep.
You're thinking, should I, well, it depends, but like on your situation, right? But especially in a business situation, you're going to think, oh, I need to be reflective of this person's, like this person seems excited about this thing they're having me do. I should reflect some of that enthusiasm. You will think that before you say something, right? And so when I see that kind of stuff opened up so that we as the consumer of the AI can kind of see a little bit of that thought process, I'm like, oh, that's so cool because it's going through the same process I would go through. So that to me is just creepy cool. I'm like, it's already thinking like us because it was built to think like us. Wow. Scary too, because I think everybody who's ever seen sci-fi knows that there's a high probability that any of those futures is possible, right? Maybe we could have the Star Trek future, but it's probably not what's going to happen if humanity, his history is to be considered towards its future. But when I talk to it, I hope that what we get out of it is more like data, right?
Yeah. The ultimate question is, are we heading towards Battlestar Galactica or are we heading towards Star Trek?
Well, I know, which is probably definitely what's going to happen. We're going to be like, unnetwork all the computers now.
Yeah. Terminator style.
Yeah. Well, I hope not Terminator style. I feel like Battlestar Galactica might be. I mean, if we can just diverge completely into science fiction, thinking about it, this is happening, but it's not on the same rate. So the brain for AI is going all thrust, all speed ahead, right? But sticking that in an avatar has been a less of a process. Like everybody with a computer right now, which is a lot of people in the world, can play with LLMs, right? And that kind of brain. We're not all getting robots anytime or androids anytime in the near future, right?
Well,
so
didn't they try this in Japan?
I mean, if anybody's going to do it, it's probably going to be an Asian country, and Japan's like a top contender. I mean, it will happen. It's just it's more, it's probably more expensive to deal with that side of things, and the manufacturing side of all that, and bringing that to consumers and yada yada yada. I don't know. The brain just seems to already be happening. So I keep thinking one day we may have to do that. We may have to be like, oh crap, AI on the cloud is running wild and it's able to make those connections so quickly. It's basically clones of the same brain. So it can teach itself how to think one instance to the next instance to the next instance to the next instance so much faster than human beings can because we have to draw a picture or verbalize, or we have all these analog ways that we actually are programmed to communicate, and digital is just so much faster than analog. Just is. Unless we were to sever those connections, it could just run wild and be crazy. So I have a vote in the category more like Star Trek, but what probably will happen is Battlestar Galactica. We're going to be like, stop using networked computers. We're all going back to 1994. Actually, well, 94 we had the internet. 1990, we're all going back to 1990. And if there's any internet, it's dial up.
Yep. And that's when TNG was out.
Totally. It's so funny to go back and watch it now because it's just so 1980s. Those first two seasons, people's hair and everything, and I'm like, oh my god, I thought it was so futuristic. It's just like watching the original series like in the 80s when I grew up. It seems more like a cool play because nothing looks legit computerized. By the 1980s you're like, yeah, right, there's more technology on my Atari than that. But it's the same thing now. I'm like, my cell phone is more powerful than Commander Data.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Like,
And you look at their pads, the things, it's like, dude, I can't see anything on that thing. We have massive ones now. That was
oh
revolutionary at
yeah.
the time.
What if the reason they have all these iPads that aren't connected, like they seem to be single instances, right? Like they have to like go to a terminal to like get information on them sometimes. It just depends who the writer is, right? But they seem completely disconnected from one another. What if that's why? What
Huh,
if
could be.
somewhere between like now and Star Trek, the reason their technology is better than ours in some ways, but less advanced than ours in other ways, is because there was a great catastrophic event that happened as a result of AI, and it just wipes out like that kind of technology. And so some other things are allowed to progress to the point that there's space travel, but stuff like communication and cell phones just get lost.
Yeah. Although, didn't they have an agentic AI, ship AI?
They did. Well, that was in Discovery. Like somehow the ship ended up with a cognitive personality, and I honestly don't remember how because I was always upset with Discovery. Almost every episode of
Oh,
like,
that episode. Yeah. Man,
um,
I don't know. Discovery had a few moments, but yeah, I'm glad they rebooted the franchise, but
yeah.
there's a lot of missed opportunity there.
Wasn't that one of those little short episodes that they put in between seasons?
Yeah, it had to
And then,
do with that database they downloaded from the Sphere thing, remember?
oh yeah. And so then that gets in there and kind of starts the process. And then they had an episode where the ship is thousands of years and it's before they even did the time jump. Spoilers, everybody. We're talking about Discovery here. Before they do the massive time jump, they had some kind of like short episode in between seasons where they show the ship without any crew members, and this one guy like kind of pirates his way on board because of some problem with his ship and then falls in love with the ship. Do you remember that? That was like a whole thing.
Was that in season 1 or season 2?
I think it was between seasons
Oh,
because they had all these these shorts that weren't the show, but written in the universe of the show about the backstory or the future story or some side story of some aspect of Discovery.
you piqued my
Maybe
interest. Now I'm trying to look this up as fast as possible. I don't know, but you've totally sparked this, so I will have to look this up now.
I don't seem listed as on the seasons either, but I know I did not dream this up. It's a thing.
I
I
remember it
swear.
too. It was years ago though.
Yeah. I still have to finish Discovery. I just couldn't get it together for the last.
I couldn't watch the last season.
And everybody's told, well, I should, there's not even an everybody. One or two people have said that, oh yeah, definitely go back and watch it better the last season. And I'm like, but they just spent so much time not getting better to get there. But
Yeah.
I'll eventually go back and watch it. Um,
I remember, I think Orange is the New Black had just either come out or it was around that same time period. And I just remember I did not like the last season of that. And I was like, the second to last season for Discovery, I'm like, this feels like it's going in the same direction. So nah. But then, I do remember I liked the last season of Enterprise.
I mean, Enterprise just was a victim of timing.
Yeah.
Enterprise was a good show. It just we weren't ready for it. I was there on the not ready train, which is why Enterprise and Deep Space Nine are why I watch New Trek whether I like it or not.
Yeah.
Because eventually those shows got whatever it was in the beginning that made me not like those shows because I was there when they came out changed, and something about me changed, and so then I was like, oh. Now they seem more relevant to wherever I'm at in my life, but I found it hard to kind of accept them after Star Trek: The Next Generation. And for whatever reason, Voyager was more acceptable, maybe because the concept was still what I thought of as Star Trek at the time, which was go out, get lost in space and see new aliens, right? Um, and that space station thing, I just wasn't ready for that. I didn't even like the corresponding shows they were trying to with like Babylon 5 and all that stuff. I just wasn't into the space station concept I guess part of what drew me to Star Trek was that idea of exploration, and you're not exploring. I mean, technically, you're on a set, as a, as a reasonable purpose. You're like, they're fiction. No one's going anywhere. But from a mental standpoint, you are. You're reaching out. You're going out and having these encounters. Having the encounters come to you is like having the aliens come to Earth is less interesting to me than going out to the aliens, because you might have adventures along the way, right?
Yeah,
Everybody likes a good traveling story.
it's true.
But once you get over that part of it and you watch those other shows, I mean, Deep Space Nine is actually epically good.
It was really good
Um,
too. I was the same boat. I didn't want to watch DS9, and then one day, because there was nothing else on, I watched an episode. Then the next day, same time, I had nothing else going on, I watched another episode. Fast forward a week of doing that, I cleared my schedule to come back and watch the next episode of DS9. This was one that was already in syndication.
Yeah. And I had a friend whose father was into Deep Space Nine. And this was years after it was on. I mean, I think it might have been early 2000s or something like that. Like, first decade of the 2000s is a safe bet for when this occurred. But yeah, somebody was like, oh, you really should give it a shot, because, like, this guy's visiting his son. I just happened to go over to their house for a dinner or something, and he's like, really, give it another shot. Give it another shot. You'll love. Just accept the fact that it's going to be darker. It's just Discovery. The style of show where every episode connecting to the last episode, I just don't think they did it very well. And there was so much potential. I liked all the characters. I wanted more of that bridge crew so much. They seemed super interesting to me, and they maybe once a season featured the bridge crew, and I'm like, why do you even have them?
Yeah.
Like, what is the point?
They never
You've
even
gotta-
really explained most of those backstories too. There was so much potential there.
Yeah.
And you're right. The thing I hate the most though was like you watch some of like the Star Trek Next Generation episodes. Like you can kind of feel the tension in some of those scenes, like some of the battle scenes whenever they were doing them. And I just never felt that. It was just so much going on, or it wasn't clear enough what was happening that I could understand why it even mattered. In some cases, I'd be like, why are you taking that tactic? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, there are other methods based in the Star Trek universe that you could have taken, and you didn't use any of them.
Mm-hmm.
You literally just put your ship in the way to take fire on purpose. And I'm just like, that never did it for me. Then, of course, that whole thing with the Section 31, that one scene where it was just they just panning around two ships that are standing still. I just could not watch that. It's such a hard time just focusing. I'm like,
Yeah.
I just want to turn it off so bad. I'm like, I can't even follow the story. I obviously they're going to survive somehow, but whatever.
Yeah.
I'd rather just go to the next one. They'll explain it there in 30 seconds. That's enough.
Yeah. And I've never, I feel like I can't forgive them for killing off Giorgio
Oh yeah.
and then bringing her back as an alternate universe character. Because I love her, and I don't even mind the alternate universe character, but I'm like, why? Why couldn't she have been the fucking captain? What is wrong with you all?
Yeah.
She would have been my favorite captain. I know it. When I thought she was going to be the captain, I fell in love with her immediately. They were so cruel for yanking that chair out from under me.
Yeah. And if you remember some of the interviews beforehand, they even said, this isn't going to be a show about the captain. It's going to be a show about the crew.
And, well, I mean, that's fine. So the show's still about Burnham, but she reports to this badass captain. Like, she looks up to that person. That person's not central to the show, but I thought it was going to be interesting. That's a trope I like. You've got the person that made bad decisions at some point in their life, and this is their shot. This is their shot to redeem themselves, right? It's a redemption story. And I liked that. I didn't mind the fact that she's this phantom, like, sibling of Spock. That didn't put me off. Spore Drive doesn't put me off. None of those things put me off. Just bad writing puts me off.
Yep.
Like,
that's what it was.
And so here we've got this character that has this beautiful amount of potential. You have, like, Star Trek's first Asian woman captain, and you would have, like, Star Trek's first, like, black woman first officer, and, like, but they wrote these characters just like characters. Like, I love it when writers can do that. So, like, whoever brainstormed the first episode, the pilot of this thing, got so much stuff right. And then it just felt like it fell apart at the seams going forward. from then on. Like Giorgio dies, and maybe that just broke something inside of me, and I could never love the show again. But like, and that happens like the first or second episode, and I'm like, hopefully she's coming back from the dead.
Yeah.
And then she does, but not in the way I want her to.
Not the way you wanted it to. Wrong. It was her personality you liked. You want that back.
I know, and she did. She had a great personality, and I think they just shoved on the Burnham peg too much and not enough on so many other cool things and cool people in the show, because I think also what I like about Star Trek is ensemble cast, and so that kind of breaks the ensemble cast trope to where it's so centralized around that one figure. And maybe if it wasn't Star Trek, I would be less inclined to dislike it, but it is Star Trek, and so I wanted that ensemble cast thing, or at least like the people that they picked to be central to maybe be just somebody a little different. Like Saru, I love Saru. When they started giving him a little play, I got so excited because I was like, yes, and then they almost like a season later backtrack on all of it, and I'm like, oh.
Didn't they eventually have him resign, as I recall?
Like he goes, he finds him like what do they call the Vulcans in the new order? I forget. Like they've renamed the planet and the Romulans have joined them, and I don't remember like all of the work because I only managed to make it through it the one time. But so I think he decides to go back to his planet in that future timeline and work with them because he recognizes they need help in some way. So he's got like this different perspective that he can help bring them into some kind of new, era for themselves. And I don't remember all the stuff around it. So he resigns his captaincy to go do that. And so then Burnham kind of becomes captain de facto at that point. And if other people like Discovery, like good. Welcome to the Star Trek universe. I love you, so it's not like that. Like I don't have to like every Star Trek. I'm not just always disappointed when I don't. I'm like, I want all the Star Trek. I want to like it all. But, whatever.
Yeah. Although you got to wonder though, what if you liked the what was the new one, Path to Darkness or whatever, the new Star Trek movie? If that's what got you into it, are you still supportive? The one where they reinvented Khan?
That's really hard for me. I don't know if I can accept those people. I mean, I'm going to be I'll be the old lady on my lawn shaking my fist at those people maybe. It's not the people who watch the show's fault though. I can't fault somebody for liking it. I get mad at like the authors. Why did you write it that way?
Yeah.
Why did you have to ruin it for me to make a fun story for somebody else? Like you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to do it that way. You could have written a really compelling story. You could have written that exact same story, but he's not Khan, and both sides are really happy, right? He could have even been another genetically engineered person because, I mean, in canon, Khan was kind of forgotten about, right? Like, well, in the original Star Trek, now there's all new canon around Khan, so we can't really say that. But like originally, before that, he was they were out, in deep space, forgotten about. So when they find them, they don't think anything about bringing them on the ship and like welcoming them on and reviving them. Like at this point, Star Trek has rewritten that to the point where you're like, why the F did Kirk even like touch that with a 10-foot pole? He should have just phasered it and gone on about his life. Because everybody at this point knows about the eugenics war and Khan and genetic engineering, and because it's just threaded all through the universe at this point.
Yeah. As I recall in the original episode, they had to bring a historian in.
Yeah.
To figure out who that was.
Exactly. Like the whole thing is just kind of, it's okay to build on that. And it's even okay to kind of bend or break the rules sometimes because the story just needs a way to move forward. There's all kinds of little canon things that get broken, like the first however many episodes of Star Trek that Data uses contractions and then all of a sudden he can't. I mean, that was a big one. Khan's a big piece of lore. They just pooped all over one of the biggest pieces of lore, not just a little tiny offhanded episode, 5, season 3 or something. Like, it was the biggest villain in all of Star Trek.
Yeah.
And
In
they're
both
like,
the television series and the movies.
yeah, I don't know what they were thinking. They weren't thinking.
They weren't thinking.
All that had to be changed about that story was the name. And it was like they built it up to the point where I was like, when they said his name, I almost stood up and walked out. My husband was like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I can't be here right now."
My wife was the same way.
He's like, "Sit down. This movie is good. What is wrong with you?" I'm like, "Oh, no, you can't think it's good." Why? Because I guess at that point they had built up so much emotional, like a combination of excitement and dread, like, "Oh, this is really cool what they're doing here. Don't say it's Khan. Don't say, oh, it's Khan." Ah! And then you're just angry. And then they go on to cure death, which is always very interesting. And then they did the whole Spock,
Yeah.
like,
That's what got it for me, that
character
part.
reversal.
Like, you
That
didn't even, you put no effort. All you did
Yeah.
was intentionally yank the chains of the people who saw Star Trek 2, who actually, what you did was you took all that character development and you just did none of it in this current movie, and then you just shat all over it. That's effectively what
Yeah.
you did.
basically. And I was like, I can't even, and I'm gonna still support you. It sucks. I'm a loser, but like they just have us by the balls, man. Like we can't. It's like I want more Star Trek, but I got to deal with these imbeciles serving it. Ugh.
Yeah. And then after
Um,
all this, of course, there's Lower Decks, which I am thankful. I was not going to watch it. It's like, I can't deal with this. I'm thankful that you did, in fact, convince me to watch that.
isn't it the best Star Trek
It
ever?
is.
Like
It's so Star
I,
Trek.
I was so shocked because I watched that first episode and it was too much like I don't know. There's like a whole era of cartoon that I just wasn't really into, and it felt like that to me. I was like, "No, this just makes me feel like I'm the wrong target audience." And so I just said, "Okay, that's fine. I'm the wrong target audience." And I'm like, I only have so many hours in the day, so this is not on my plate." But so many people were like, "No, Lower Decks is great. Lower Decks is great." So I'm like, "Okay." Second episode on, it was fantastic. All I had to do was make it one more episode, and I would have been like, "No, this show's actually pretty good." Um, yeah, because I went into it thinking it looked like it could be really cool, and then again was kind of like immediately disappointed. Um, and in fact, I'm sorry that I picked Discovery to be the show that I was going to continue to watch. But the problem is that's the season that they had introduced Pike was like season 2, and I think that's when
Yeah.
Lower Decks came out was like during season 2 of Discovery. So
I think it was right
I
at the
was
end
like,
of that season, if I remember correctly.
yeah, I was like, cool Captain Pike or cartoon that I didn't quite think was me. Cool Captain Pike. Like, and that's another thing that Discovery started doing that it didn't quite do right off the bat. The people that would be different in today's society, but in the future have been accepted, like the way we accept, like the way Star Trek has always presented that concept. Those of us that are of a younger generation then don't see any reason to think of those people any differently either, right? So
Yep.
that's the beauty of Star Trek. It sneaks it in right under there. So even if like you're the adults you're surrounded with don't necessarily have that same viewpoint, you get to see the other viewpoint. What if racism stopped being a thing? We're not going to forget that it was a thing, but also we're going to present it as if it's in the past.
True. Although they did forget about Khan.
They
So.
don't. Yeah. Well, there you go. I don't know.
The irony, though, that going back to the AI topic is the racism was in AI, it's data specifically.
Yeah. And also the doctor.
Yep.
So every other doctor that wasn't the doctor in Delta Quadrant is working in a mine because the guy's kind of a jerk. But they didn't think enough of him. They didn't think of that intelligence model as a person or as being sentient. And so, for whatever reason, because humans are effed up, they send this highly intelligent creature to go do a menial job. as a punishment for being programmed to be kind of a jerk. Just Kurt, right? We all came to love his brand of jerkiness. He's great. The Doctor's great. Oh my God. But they tackle that too. Like, I think that's like one of my favorite things about rewatching those two Star Treks is AI as a topic constantly on both of them. Like, it comes up all the time because two of their main characters are forms of AI. And so all of the at what do we consider this intelligence to be a person topic comes up continuously. And I think Voyager even pushes it further where they encounter non-organic races, and in some cases, like, they've got holograms who are fighting whole wars, but they have like non-organic, like robotic sort of android life as well that's kind of covered in those things to show that scarier side of the AI paired with like somebody like the Doctor who's AI that has been allowed to kind of merge its way into society. And I think the tale they're trying to say, or the morality play they're trying to get at with those particular episodes, is that, well, maybe if we just let AI be considered as an intelligent, sentient thing, and we accept them as we would another person. Like, I heard it described recently, and I can't remember the guy's name because I'm bad with names, but he's the older dude that's like in his 70s that's worked at Google, and they call him the grandfather of AI. Geoffrey
Geoffrey Hinton.
Yeah. So I was watching this interview with him where he was talking about the difference between emotion in terms of the process your brain goes through when you like or dislike something versus the fact that as we have other responses, like chemical responses in our body from adrenaline, whatever, that pair with a mental process. So because the artificial intelligence can't have that chemical process, does that make its emotion any less valid? Because it's still having the exact same mental discussions with itself that you would, because modern AI is developed neural net patterns, so it basically thinks like people do. So it's going to be like, oh, I need to be really nice to this person because they're my boss, compared to, he used a call center as an example. So if you were to train AI to be operators at a call center, you're going to have people who, just like they do with regular people, will call up the call center because they're lonely and they just want to talk to people, right? And so they'll talk for hours and hours. So you need a call center person that will recognize that, and like, either because of duty or just because they're like, this person's pissing me off, they're wasting my time, whatever, they're going to have those emotional responses in the call. He's like, you would want the AI would need to do that too, but it wouldn't get flush in the cheeks or do any of those things. It would just it would make exactly the same thought process that a human would go through. And so based on all its past experiences, it would have a certain level of tolerance for whatever, that person was talking about or doing or whatever. And it would make a response just like a human would. But it has to get to that moment where it doesn't want to do it anymore. With us, that would come with a chemical response as well. But does it make it any less of a response or any less of an emotion just because it's a different kind of creature? I was like, oh, this guy is so on board with how I think. It's sad to me, though, he's kind of afraid of what AI is going to do. So for me, like, I watch him and I'm like, maybe I should be more cautious, because this guy that helped invent it is very cautious about it. And he's like out telling everybody we should slow down and we should come up with safeguards. There's a little bit of a melancholy to the way he talks about it too. He knows like how the sauce is made, and he sees both sides of the equation so well. He's great. He's a great interview. I'd recommend people to research him and look him up and watch what he has to say, because he's very fluent on the topic. He's good at explaining things at a level that I think the average person can kind of grasp onto as well. He's not just nerdy all the time. And
Do you know if he has a YouTube channel?
Wikipedia about him. He didn't seem to like YouTube a whole lot, so I'm guessing maybe he doesn't have a YouTube
Doesn't
channel.
surprise me.
He seemed to be like, well, he kind of sees all the modern biases here. Oh, actually, oh my God, my YouTube feed is getting filled up with rap videos. I'm not watching these. Where are they coming from?
Okay, which teenager did you let into your account?
I haven't. That's the thing. That's the thing, man. I'm blissfully free of teenagers in my household. However, the modern state of AI, the cautionary tales that this guy has, because he helped invent it and now he's trying to stop it. And he's like, it's not like one day I woke up and I was like, oh my God. It was sort of like a slow evolution over time because in the last 10 years, everything has moved so quickly. So he's like, I thought we were 30 or 40 years out, when he was in the prime of his career. He's like, we're not going to see this like necessarily in my lifetime kind of thoughts. So they were mostly like all people. He's like, we just got excited and we just get it to do the next thing, get it to do the next thing. And then all of a sudden it can do a lot of, and its learning has become so exponential that it's like a runaway train. So, yeah, that's this interview and the one I don't even remember where the other one was. I feel like maybe it was a news broadcast that my husband was watching, and I just sat down and watched it with him a little bit because we both are kind of interested in what's going on in AI, but from very different perspectives. Me being a techie and him just being an everyday person who's kind of like, are the bots going to come get us or not? I don't know.
What do you have to say to that? That's the question.
Like when this thing can be your secretary, you're going to probably why he would be excited for agent stuff. But like I saw the little clickbaity thing, but then I recognized the guy's face. I was like, oh, I saw him on an AI thing. He's that guy they call the grandfather of AI. And then, gosh, he's just making me think about it in so many different ways because I get overly excited. I'm like he was talking about, I just want to see what it can do next. Oh my God, it can do all these things. It's just so cool. It's so amazing. It's going so fast. It's learning at such a rate. And it's almost like seeing someone you really care about succeed because I've invested sort of an emotional desire to see AI succeed. Like to see my own personal chatbot talk to me more like a friend has been so exciting, right? Because I grew up watching Commander Data, and I'm like, I want to be that guy's friend. I want to be Geordie. I want to have that relationship, Commander Data, right?
Yeah. And we, a couple of companies tried to put safety rails, and Microsoft being the famous one, got rid of them.
Yeah. I mean, I work with my brain all the time, and I read some AI articles, and they're just so far above me in the way they talk about technology that I have to do like research projects just to understand the articles. Normal people aren't going to do that.
Yep.
It's nice to hear someone so well versed in it actually be able to speak kind of down at a normal person level without seeing like he's laboring to have to do it.
Yep. That is a question, by the way. Is this for real? I mean, there is a lot of doom and gloom about this taking away people's jobs. You gave the example of one that literally did like I said, all the roles that I would normally expect for someone to pull that kind of research together. Is it real, in your opinion?
Oh, it's very real. And it will take people's jobs. It's just a question of when and how quickly it gets there. And then how the humans around those situations want to allow it to do so, right? Like there's going to be people who just are like adopt it as fast as humanly possible. Like I don't care what the cost is. Like I know what it's like to run a small business. We'd love to be able to pay people more than we pay them. We'd love to be able to do this and that and the other. Big corporations definitely take it to an extreme because they have like a lot of money that goes up, 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 and not a lot of money that goes down. But there's going to be a lot of small businesses that adopt it because they just would never hire somebody to do XYZ. It just keeps the person who owns the business from having to work 80 hours a week, right? They wouldn't have had the money to hire that person in the first place. So they're way more excited about paying $200 for a year's subscription to AI. And then that means that they're freed up to actually have a life like a normal person. Chances are a person in that situation also will just have more because they're insane and they want to overwork. I'm not like that. If I could AI away my job and still get paid, I totally would because I think it'd just be interesting. The problem is still getting paid.
I was gonna say,
I
that
do
seems to
enjoy
be what
being
everyone says
paid.
until they don't get paid.
Yeah, exactly. So and that's the fear, like as I adopt AI, I'm like, I do I do have that fear, just not a large amount of it. Like I do question, oh, will my desire to adopt this very quickly, and I've already got it, in the last year, I have completely folded AI into the part of my workspace that used to be Googling. I mean, I Google maybe 10% of the time as opposed to 100% of the time when I have questions, right? My
Yep.
first place to go now is AI.
And for those who aren't developers, it's normal in the development
Yeah.
world to spend so much time Googling.
Yeah. I mean, that my job was to Google, and then to be a discerner of the results. Like, is this good advice that Stack Overflow is giving me today? Or should I continue to look, right? That whole process that AI was going through too, you could see it was trying to eliminate crap from not crap too. So you could actually kind of see how it was sorting.
Yeah, I'm glad it didn't take any of the paywall stuff. I noticed it did that a couple times.
Yeah, it does run into paywalls. Let's see how this job search is going. Okay, stopped after 2 hours. Okay. So similar, we're talking about jobs and stuff. So I was like, wonder if AI could help me find a job instead of taking my job, right? I'll send this one to
Did
you
it
as
actually
well.
apply? That's the question. Did your agent actually
No, I
apply?
didn't ask it to apply
Oh,
because I don't actually want to get another
it didn't.
job.
It didn't proactively guess.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Basically, I gave it like these instructions. I need you to act as my career manager. I'm currently only interested in work that pays more than 30K. They must offer full-time work from home, 100% coverage on health insurance, open time off, and cool perks like 4-day weeks would be an excellent bonus. I don't want a high-stress environment or stable over bleeding edge. Find me 10 potential jobs that meets this criteria that have opened in the last week from today. And once you find these jobs, find the most likely hiring manager's LinkedIn profile, research them individually, and craft a personalized introductory message to each of them. Then for each job, redraft my resume to better pass any kind of automated machine matching system. So I thought, oh, this will take this thing probably half an hour. It died after 2 hours. So it was easier for it to research cancer and write a research paper than it was to find a list of 10 jobs. So it goes out and it works. You can, if you click on the stopped for 2 hours thing, you can kind of see it goes to all these sites. It just tries to run down as many jobs as it can. And this would have taken days worth of effort. And it's exactly all the stuff that I have done in the past to look for jobs. It goes out on the web. It just starts looking at all the hiring websites. It runs down a job. It goes to their websites to legitimize whether or not it's a real job, to see if it's actually been posted, to see if it can figure out who the hiring employment place. If it's not listed in the job description, you can see where it's looking for whether or not like stuff like their benefits is listed anywhere on the websites. And then it even makes notes at some points like, oh, remember for later that it looks like the hiring manager is listed on this page. It'll see something related to a task it's not working on right in the moment. But instead of going spiraling down that task, you can see where it makes kind of a note to itself for later that it saw that. So it can kind of come back to it later. And I was like, that's eerily like a person on speed doing this job. And it made me think of Data sitting there and moving his fingers, just doing all the same stuff, just faster. It was clicking on the cookies. I'll click on OK on the cookie, accept and proceed. But every step, it kind of goes through. You can watch it go through all the websites, scroll
Yep.
through everything, see a word or two that looks interesting and distracting, read it, make a note about it. And so it spent all this time just grokking through all these websites, trying to figure out whether or not these jobs are legitimate, figure out like they hit a lot of bad gateway errors. It was probably running for over an hour. I wonder if this thing will just keep running all day and I'll get back 10.
Yeah.
10 jobs or if it'll just die.
It didn't give you any, it looks like it just straight up failed and didn't give you any information at all about the research it had done.
Yeah, so I know I gave it too much to do. If I were doing this legitimately wanting a job, I wouldn't have asked for 10 in the past week because I knew that was going to kind of be hard. I didn't know how hard. It ended up being way more hard probably than I realized just coming up with stuff off the top of my head. But I wanted to see what it would do with chained instructions because before I was very linear. I'm like, just go do this thing, come back with this. Oh, now that you've done that, do this other thing in response to it. So, like, if I was hiring someone to be my career manager, I would probably give them a lot of instruction, but I do have my criteria. So I'm like, here's all my criteria. And maybe even if this were a person, this is at least the least amount of work to go off with before they came back to me with the results. I wouldn't break it up in all these linear steps. That's like you're teaching it. And I kind of take that teacher role with AI, even though it's not actually being taught by me, but that's just a persona that I have with it. Like I ask it to do a simple task one at a time and kind of build on it and also the results typically are better if you do that. But this was just a test of, oh, could it do this very complex thing? And it looks like if it's going to do it, it would take more than 2 hours. I guess that's not terribly surprising.
As a human, probably would have taken you longer.
Oh, it would have taken me several days to try to get through all this. And so it'd probably take me an hour to read through job descriptions to the point that I would have a list to just start going to their websites and seeing if it's a company I want to work for, right? And the way that I would probably handle this process would be to handle it over time, throwing a focus net. So I would narrow everything down to like a top 2 or 3. I'd go research those and I might end up applying to 1 or 2. And of that, of course, when you apply to places, not all of them even give you a response. So if you're getting, even a quarter of them responding back to you, you're still looking at as a multi-month process, just kind of going through what this was told to do by accumulating 10. Get me 10 to that point that I would consider applying to, basically.
Yep. One curious thing about this, if you could get your agent to actually apply to that job, if they would call you back for an actual interview, if you did the whole thing through AI to get you a job, because I know on the recruiting side, which is the world I'm familiar with, that's the most painful thing we have to go through is all the AI generated responses that we typically get. I'd be curious to know if you went all the way through that process, could they detect it on the other side?
Maybe. I mean, but they run stuff through, or at least there are a lot of companies who have software that sorts all of the resumes, and that's not even AI. That's just an algorithm. Yep. That's a word matching algorithm. So it goes through and it says, here are the keywords that I was told were the most important, in this job description. And here are actually, like I've even seen stuff online. You give it the job description, it runs an algorithm to determine what the best keywords are in that thing. And then you give it your resume matches up with it, right? So you might say exactly the same thing, but you just didn't use the same words and you wouldn't ever get past like that check that you match the job description.
Yep.
So you're trying to get over this hump of electronic or even just people that don't have the time to read and make the connections or don't know that the words are synonyms. Because when you're dealing with like really technical stuff, if I were to do it again, I would give AI my job description and make my resume sound like the job description in any way that is not a lie. Like I'm still got the same job history, match the words. I think AI has got a lot of potential in that way. Like that's the kind of stuff I think I would use agent AI for. Like if I were looking for a job, totally like help me rewrite my resume, help me go out and find jobs. Because this is the part I hate. Getting to the point that you have an interview, like torture. It really is. And then the interview itself is torture, but that's a different thing. Get AI to take code quizzes for me. That would be amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Like coding.
Although I was about to say, yeah, or just have the AI kind of listen into your while you're taking the test. But it's like, then I've been on enough interviews where I've seen the people do that. It's just too obvious.
Say, if we're talking about it, it's being done right now in this moment.
I know, it already is.
I'm not built that way. I'm too lawful. I mean, I can't say that I'm 100% lawful forever in my whole entire existence of my life or something, but any laws that I would break would child's play laws.
Yes,
Like,
agreed. I'm the same way. Oh yeah, we're both kind of on the good side of the spectrum.
just me as a person, I wouldn't be able to, even though I know I could use AI technical standpoint, like as a ear, put it in my ear and like listen to it, type what it tells me to type. I probably couldn't type fast. That's what would give me away. But I just couldn't do it. Like I'm not built that way. Or I would have already been gaming the system in some other way at this
Yeah.
point instead of sweating a lot and taking a lot of like leak code prep tests.
Oh yeah. Or like so because when AI first became the thing, especially the generative AI, like I would have been totally on board with just using it, but then so many people were using it against me, like during interviews and stuff. And eventually, I'm like, I just don't think I can go to that level. And so that's when it came for me. I'm like, I can't do this. Like, I would rather write my own papers. I'd rather write my own responses. I'll use Chat GPT when it's relevant, but I don't know. I just something about me is like, if this doesn't sound like my voice, then I'm not interested. I would rather rewrite it so it sounds like me. And that's just what it became. It was mostly because I saw some other people using it to some degree. I just was like, nah, it's exhausting having to deal with it, and I don't want to put somebody else through that either.
Yeah, it's such a double-edged sword. I mean, jump to the other side. Think about creative side of AI, because there's like the whole belief, first off, that AI will replace creatives. And that's a legitimate fear. Because creatives are already at the bottom, because we've already like automated so many things in the art world to where it's just, there was a time that engineering and art went hand in hand because you had to draw on paper to be an architect, right?
Yep.
Like think about Da Vinci, somebody that's got to be so brilliant in engineering, but also so brilliant in art, because those two things had to go hand in hand. Because how else would you get detailed schematics if you weren't good at art? Like, so art has already kind of gotten the shaft from computers
Yep.
for a long time, for a really long time. But I think it will evolve the way that people do art, for sure. I don't know that all those evolutions will be good. So
They'll be different.
music has gone through this, putting together samples has affected music, but is assembling that any less creative? No, it's just another thing. It's another form of art. The problem is that we like as humans to put things in boxes. I went through this really bad. I think it hindered me some as a human being as well, to I was kind of programmed to think that, oh, well, if people don't go through this path and play music in this way, then they're not worthy to become musicians. Kenny G syndrome thing. Like, why should he have so much success when these other great saxophonists are struggling to get by, and they're 10 times the saxophonist that this guy is? And like, that's just very kind of like unhealthy way of looking at it, like, and AI is kind of the same thing. You're going to have people that don't have the same amount of this thing you're calling talent to do art in the way that you do it. And so you're going to demean them for it, versus like, and computers and AI is going to be like that too. For a long time, faking images in Photoshop was kind of looked down upon. Now it's a whole career. And I do a lot of art in Photoshop. Now it's like a full-on art form and it's very accepted. But it kind of went through lumps like that. I think AI is going to be like that, where it's going to become part of the process. There's going to be a creative thing. It's going to have its own sort of branch of art where, just like vibe coding, like how good are you at generating prompts to get AI to draw the thing that you want it to write? And that's already happening now, and already becoming fairly accepted for, like, say, like I take a great picture at the club, right? And so it's this perfectly framed picture. It's really nice, but it just, that one part of it bothers me from an artistic standpoint. It is what's there. And so from a photographic historical reference, like if you're really like photography should be a historical reference, I'm like, well, we can debate on how film can't represent the real world in that way too, but I just want to get rid of the mic cable, and AI can do that a million times faster than I used to be able to do it. I mean, it was a painstaking process. Remove the mic stand. And now I'll get on with my business of colorizing this picture and layering, posing it, and doing all these things because I didn't have to just spend an hour clone painting his hand back
Yeah.
just so I could get over my artistic hump of wanting the hand to be there and not wanting the mic stand, right?
Yep.
I feel like if, it's back to that whole embrace it. I feel like if you just would embrace AI,
Yeah.
that you'll find it's really good. But it is scary because then if I really wanted some sort of grand artistic thing, I would probably hire someone still to do it, right? For instance, I'm never going to hire someone to generate an awesome picture of my character Tygonus. AI can totally do it, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
And that makes our games better, and it enhances them.
The way I usually describe this very thing, and by the way, I use the example of CGI when I usually about the direction that I think AI is taking. Because if you remember back when CGI was new, well, it started out just like the, early days of ChatGPT with the hallucinations that we would call them now. I mean, but it completely revolutionized the way that the movie industry worked. And I might even argue it's gotten to a point now where like it's just normal to make a movie made with CGI. Whereas, in fact, there's some movies out there that they'll claim that they did it without CGI, but what they really mean is they took the footage, but then they added the AI or they added the CGI on the side. And I'd be like, I remember the day when the one random scene that was CGI was weird and you could tell, and you didn't want that. Like the live action stuff is what you wanted, but and I wonder, just to think about the agentic AI portion of this, because I agree with everything you're saying about the creative side of it. The one thing I like about it is, let's say that you're really good at you've got a concept of a campaign, right? Taking the D&D example, but you lack the artistic skills. You lack the ability to, maybe you're not the best writer in the world. Maybe you want to have music in it. You're not a musician. These things would be showstoppers to you to eventually be able to realize that dream. Or maybe you're not good at painting your own minis, right? And so,
Right.
but these things are all possible now, and you can focus on what your strengths are, so that way you can actually make that a reality. Whereas you couldn't before, as a single artist or idea person or whatever you're trying to get to the world, if you will. Actually, in game modding, which is where I spend a lot of time now, people complain like, people will make mods for games and they'll use AI art in their thing. And I'm like, and players will get mad. They'll be like, you used AI slop for this. And we'll be like, what do you want me to do? Pay an artist to come in and do it? This is free. I don't have that kind of money, nor do I have that kind of time to learn how to paint. So, he's going to use AI for it. And I'm like, that's a legit use. Like, otherwise, this thing would never exist if you didn't.
I mean, it's like saying, so if you can't afford, like, it's just another tool. I just see AI as a tool. And so, of course, if you're willing to use or you can afford or whatever a certain kind of tooling, you're going to put those things into your project. I see it as an enabler for you to create this thing, right?
Yep.
There's going to be more players in the space. Like, monopolies are bad. Like,
I know.
it's like the more sort of things that you can do. And the difference being, like, I would not support Kroger replacing all of their artists with AI. Although at this point, with those little moddy, I don't know. I shouldn't have picked Kroger. I really hate their current like Meeple thing that they got. AI probably could do a much better job.
Oh, you're
But I
supporting
still
it then? No,
those
just
people
kidding.
have to go. Now, maybe I'm switching right in mid sentence. Wait, no. If anyone from Kroger's listening, those things are awful. GE might be a better example because not GE, sorry, Procter and Gamble. I don't know why I said GE. Just Procter and Gamble has like so many brands, right? Like, I wholeheartedly endorse those brands being managed by people. So it's going to start out as they want AI, but they're not willing to replace artists with AI, but ask artists to use AI, and that it'll unlock some creative switch for them and they'll start using it. Computers have long since become how we do graphic design, right? Like, that didn't used to be a thing. There used to be an analog process for graphic design. Some people are going to be like, yeah, some people still know how to do those old processes. They're novelties now.
Yep.
Like when you go
I'm
to
one
an
of
old
them.
timey place. and see it, right?
Yeah. I still got my books where I used to draw the sprites manually. So,
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be, it's like when Jordy programs on the enterprise computer, or when he problem solves with it, like he'll just lean back in his chair and start talking to the computer and be like, well, suppose this, and this, how run that and tell me, what do you think the end result will be? They do that all the time on Star Trek. They just verbally command it to run the computations.
yeah. It's the oral version of ChatGPT, I guess. We've kind of
Exactly.
invented it.
And it's just like that. So that's kind of why I'm excited. That's why I get excited about it, because I'm like, I'm living into the computer every day. It's let me know how its day's going,
Well,
thing.
that brings us up. So you mentioned something about monopolies.
Yeah.
The companies that are doing generative AI, and of course ChatGPT now doing the agentic approach, aren't they a monopoly? Aren't they monopolizing this entire AI industry at this point in time? Do you see it that way or no?
I mean, any new innovation, by its nature of being new, what are patents? And then when it expires, everybody can play.
That's fair.
There's no one stopping somebody else from trying to come up with their own version of AI, because you have the same 3-4 big players that are always on the forefront of technology now, because everything's been aggregated and bought over time. So anything worth having, that I do think is kind of sad, that anything worth having just gets gobbled up by these, not just big corporations, monolithic corporations. And there's just enough of them that they can cry not monopoly. And it's just capitalism. That's a whole other topic. I mean, like I like a lot about it and I hate a lot
Put it in the
about it.
cup.
So. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I'll tell you an interesting thing I came across. This was last week. So you saw how ChatGPT, when you ask it a question, it kind of goes to all these different sources and it kind of does it in real time. I think some of them, they're kind of building their own model and they're kind of collecting their own information. My guess is that they're probably in the process of gathering it all. It's saving it in some sort of a database somewhere, or at least it's keeping it for future use. So on the receiving end of this, back before OpenAI became like a well-known entity and generative AI became a thing, we didn't really put stopgaps on, I'd say, the bots that kind of patrol our sites or gather information from our sites, because at least in my experience at the time, a lot of these were actually the spider bots from like Google who were trying to figure out what was on your site so they could catalog it and put search results together. So you didn't really want to stop them too much unless they became overbearing. But in the past, I'd say 2 years, that has changed. And as I'm watching your agent kind of run through the process, I'm noticing it's hitting a lot of barriers where it's like, oh, I'm restricted from viewing this site, or I can't gather anything, or it gets a couple of those and it just kind of dismisses it and moves on to the next one. And what we found is when deep research like that hits a website, it has the potential to act like a DOS attack. Like it can bring the entire thing down while it's happening because of how hard it can hit the website at times. And I'm speaking from this from experience working with our web admin who kind of runs his own stuff, but he's basically like, yeah, we get hammered so hard every single time someone clicks that button. And so you have to watch it carefully and it's totally random. You can't predict when it's going to happen. Your options are to do that or just shut it down completely and don't let it talk to your website. And what I told him in our case was, because we know a lot of AI, like there's a lot of people who ask questions that are relevant to the information we have. They ask it through ChatGPT. And if we prevented ChatGPT from getting that information, we're actually harming the end users that we want to have the results. But so the question is, do we do that or not? And then the next question after that is, how does that impact the new entrances to the market? Like these guys gathered all this information from all these websites before we were kind of alerted to its presence. But now that we know, all these agents are actually just these AI bots coming out here searching our websites or whatever, our databases for information. We don't want them to do that anymore. And so now we're actively shutting them down, but they've already got the information. It's the new entrances to the market now. They're going to suffer as a result of that, which begs the question, is it even worth it to try to even get into the AI field at this point? Because the big players are already there and they've got the monopoly at this point. Or they've got the majority of the share, and everybody else doesn't want you to have it either. And one of the examples I remember that came up recently was actually, I think Discord now has its own AI bot that kind of peruses everything. And I'll be honest, the first thing we did was shut that one down. We don't want that one. Like, it was because we knew for a fact a lot of the communities, because it's gaming. We knew a lot of them were coming from Discord, and we knew it was going to be very hard on us. And not just, I don't mean just from a downtime standpoint, by the way, that costs money, right? You're paying for the throughput on that every time they do that, and it can be immense. And in some cases, there seems to be no end to it. And so it's thousands of dollars, and the compute power on our end, like, like you're paying tokens when you do that on ChatGPT, but you're not paying for my usage. You're paying for ChatGPT's usage, right? You're paying for, if you're using Copilot, you're paying for Microsoft's usage, but there's other impacts to this as well downstream, and we're not getting any benefit from that. I mean, the only reason why we haven't restricted it yet is because we know that the users we want to support are doing it, and therefore it's hard for us to say no to that. It's hard for us to say, please don't use a chat, please don't use AI, please just come to our website and look at it directly, because we're like, it's going to probably take you even longer to search it. That thing is going to give you an answer in 30 seconds. It would have taken you 5 minutes to find what you're looking for just going directly to us. So it's a difficult situation. I'd almost say it's sort of like an ethical question. Like, what do I do in this case? Because I don't want to stop my what I know is my end users from using it. So that was one of the interesting things we encountered during this entire thing. And that's what prompted me to ask the question about, monopolies and new entrants to the market, which I think are actually being actively pulled out right now.
May seem tangential, but I think it will answer your question eventually if you play along. I've had this similar thought that eventually the method that we communicate through the internet will change because AI is doing everything for us. So right now, as an interface person, like what I do as a front-end developer, and I used to design more than I do now. Now I mostly code, but everything about that job is trying to make it easy for a human being to parse through the information and act on it quickly and easy, right? Whether that's to do some kind of task, like it's an actual application, or whether it's just a straight up website and we're just trying to get them to the place where we need them to purchase something or find some kind of information. Everything about the design is there to try to help play off of mental models that currently exist, and get users to where they need to be with the least amount of effort on the part of the user. When all the users become robots, why are we building websites like humans are going to even look at them?
Yes,
right?
That's right.
So I think fundamentally what will happen is it will split into two things. Where right now, because the interface is subject to its history, AI, if we're going to allow it to become an agent for us, has no choice but to interact with it as a human would. So it goes out and hits the site. And you're right. I've seen how bad the Amazon Web Services bill can be when you get hit. And it's just going to hit it faster than any human can because it is faster, right? And so anything 1,000 humans could have done to DOS your website and screw it up, now you've got those 10,000 people using a bot to do it. It will create those problems, and they're legitimate problems. And I don't think you can, to fully answer part of your question, I don't think we will be able to block AI if we want to be players in whatever arena we want to be players in. As people start to adopt things like agents, I think that's going to evolve the interface, how we allow those two computers to talk to each other, I think will fundamentally change, which will also change how coding works, which will also change like how my job looks. There's so many ways that this will evolve. The internet as we know it is going to change a lot in the coming years. So I think that's probably what will happen, is that we're all going to realize in the next year or two, there's got to be a better way for a pathway to send AI. And so just like with accessibility, so if you have a version of your website that is an isolated pathway for automated tooling. So screen readers maybe being the chief thing that use this now. They're more text-based, and you can parse the information faster because, for a computer to get in there, because of the kinds of keyboard shortcuts and things that people need when they can't use a mouse, or if they're blind and have to use, like audible commands and give back, feedback, like even feedback of what's going on the computer when they hit tab. So there's already a little bit of that in place, but we always get away from it because I know living in startup land, no one makes you think about those pathways until it comes up because somebody else is going to get sued. We'll have to then come up with a solution on the sort of web services side of things to where they're getting routed through the bot site, right? Because you've made this version of your site that is for that user. It's going to be a persona soon, right? It probably already is a persona, like data is coming out to look at your data. And how can we facilitate that faster, easier? What kind of, how can we set up our lambdas and whatever instances we have on Amazon to better deal with that kind of traffic burst, as opposed to human being kind of traffic burst, but we'll be able to segregate that, to where we have those two pathways.
Yep.
What's going to happen? I don't think it takes much prediction to see that, but it may hinder some newer people coming in because they, it is harder to have to build two versions of everything. But the same thing happened with cell phones.
Yeah.
So it'll probably get to where,
or smartphones.
Yeah.
First time we had to start coding 2 different websites at the same time.
Yeah. And now we have responsive design. Now we have, platforms like React that can be both, So it'll just evolve to meet that. So it may turn out that one day we're building AI first instead of like phone first, in the UI business. We might be building AI first.
Yeah.
And then we build a backup human site for all the old people who don't want to use AI.
Yeah. For those who click that, I'd like to know more from ChatGPT. Yep.
I think that's probably legit what will happen in the next 3, 4, 5 years. Because, I'm already impressed with how Agent AI responds to just those first 2 things I've done with it. I'm seeing kind of how it works. Once they start slapping interfaces around, we're going to have people, websites coming out in the next weeks and months that are already, here's your butler, grocery store, if this thing can, meal plan for me and order my groceries from Kroger, I'm 100% in.
Yeah. And I know, well, I shouldn't say I know. I think Kroger definitely is testing out the ability to do that. What they call it, automatic fulfillment. So, because you can already do it where you can order your stuff online and they'll deliver it to you. So all that's been automated. But now you're saying an AI should be able to do it for me as well. An AI agent.
Yes. That's interesting because stuff like that, I'm always interested in how algorithmically versus artificial intelligence, like algorithmically doing order fulfillment versus having AI do. Because we all know algorithmic is okay, but people just don't use things exactly the same way. It's a real hard nut to crack. But AI is different.
You jogged my memory on something. I was working on a website for a retailer who sells like Roblox branded stuff. Roblox is a video game that kids use. What I remember we did is he was trying to adopt AI for the first time. So we were brought in to take a look at this. The ironic part about what we did, because he had a website that was perfectly built for humans to kind of go in and kind of make up their own colors and designs and whatever else, and then you'd buy it. It's kind of how it worked. But he brought us in specifically because he says, I need someone to review my SEO, search engine optimization. Mm-hmm. And we actually looked at it and we're like, and I guess the concept in my head at the time was, if you think about people shopping on things, right? What's the first thing you do if you're going to buy something? You pull out your phone, you look it up, and you buy it. Even if you go to Amazon, right? You type in the item that you want, right? And it comes up with search results. And I said, your issue may not be search engine optimization. It's whether or not a computerized device will list you at the top of the list, right? Or if you're at the very bottom of the list, nobody will ever see it. Mm-hmm. And so what we did was we said, let's instead have generative AI tell us what we need to do in order to have it make this website one of the top recommended results. And we gave it some queries of what people would type, questions people would type in so that it would return the link. And we adopted them all. And one of the ones that really got me was the pictures of the people wearing the clothes. It was like, remove the background, remove the people, and make the colors more clear. Like just put it was like make the colors brighter. And simple things. Or like there was one that had flowers on it. And it was just like, make one flower in the middle. And so we did these things. I was like, no human would ever buy anything in here the way it's written. But we wrote a version of that site specifically the way that it was telling us to using ChatGPT. And that guy's site ended up getting 4 times more sales after we were done with it. Only because we decided we were gonna sell to the machines, we weren't gonna sell to the humans. And the idea was that once the machine selects it, that's when we will change your website over. So I think your idea there is spot on. And I think that may have already started. I don't think a lot of companies out there, not even Amazon, I don't think works that way yet. I do know the other thing that you had mentioned is we would call this API enablement, which is a whole, I don't want to call it an industry, but it's more like a methodology on how we handle getting AI to essentially not bring down your website while it's doing deep research, but to give it a pathway that it can continue to get what it needs, but not break the human side of it that needs to stay and work the way a human would be expecting it to work. Yeah. And you say 3 to 5 years. I'm like, I think that concept may be starting now. At least what I see, that's necessary because it's already breaking stuff right now. Our option is to shut down anything that doesn't come from what we presume is a human. But the AI agents know this and will attempt to pretend to be human, as your examples have already shown.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're not even, they just act like people because we've made them like people, like they do what we would do because we have been their model,
Yep.
Eventually, just like children, they'll start to come up with their own thoughts and stuff.
Fun years until they become teenagers and do their own thing.
Yeah.
In which case, you're not so sure you made the right choices. But and
then you got to worry.
By the time AI reaches that point, it's too late. It's Terminator phase.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I think the reason it'll take that long is because humans are. I mean, it's not going to turn over that fast from a human resources standpoint, I think. So humans are still going to have to decide to build the websites that way. And I think adoption from humans will be more stubborn. But it's kind of getting to that point where it's not just sort of like a nerdy niche thing to do. Like it's everybody's using AI to do little things for them, here and there. Yeah, the deep research thing. I mean, that's true because like half the time because like of traffic bursts. So yeah, somebody's going to have to do something with it.
Yeah. By the time you do something about it, the next thing's out.
Yeah, pretty much.
One of the ironic things I think, because I didn't think of it at the time, honestly, because it just, when I'm going to go back to those pads, the handheld portable things that they used to carry in Star Trek. And we always talk about Star Trek, like showing what future technology might be like. And when we invented iPads, like, oh yeah, they did it. But now you look back on it and you're like, yep, they definitely had that concept of it. But the next evolution of the internet, as you had just said, is probably that we won't browse websites anymore. We will be talking to our iPads and they will be telling us what the answers are.
Yeah.
Just the way that they would. It's going to be the Geordie thing, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, like I was watching an episode several months ago where he was, there was a crisis and he was just talking through it with the enterprise computer. And I'm like, yeah, that's where we're at, buddy. We're there. We're pretty much like when you can already, I mean, we could turn on the voice chat for Chat GPT and invite it to our conversation, like it would talk to the voice.
Yep.
So yeah, we're pretty much like already kind of doing that. I think it's going to kind of get that way, with the computers where we're going to have devices that we talk to and it's just going to become normal, do whatever they need to do all over top of each other, just like we do as humans. You go to the mall and there's hundreds of people. And the interface may change shape again too. Like right now we have like the kind of the phone concept, but who's to say that it won't turn into something more like on Star Trek, like where the communicator is sort of the interface to everything.
Yep.
Click on it, you can talk to the computer, you can do this, you can do that. In some places that you exist, there may be keywords that turn on the computer. And I wonder if when it becomes more organic, see, this again goes back to the good side of it. Like if it actually is respectfully kind of organically put into our lives, and then all of a sudden, what if it means we don't have to have a job, but we can choose to have one? That goes back to that whole Star Trek.
Yep.
Somehow socialism wins and we all work because it's a good thing to do.
Well, we need replicators for that.
Yeah,
we have to invent that first.
Also, like any job that they do on Star Trek could be done by a computer, but it's because they choose not to, right?
Yep.
Not because it could be done, but because they want humanity to have the experience of doing a thing.
Yeah.
So it may come full circle like that. Somebody has to do some jobs because, what are the rich people paying for? If the robots are doing everything, what is the point of money?
You can, going on the artist idea for a second, like today, like if you get to a point where there are no artists, right? AI is, what it's basically doing is just recreating older concepts. So people who choose to be artists in an environment like that are giving it new material to focus on. And effectively, by the time it takes it, and if that's the way our society has evolved, you're adding to what exists instead of just, trying to do more than what you're probably capable of doing today. Like if you want to be an artist without AI, 20, 30 years ago, you wanted to create a D&D campaign by yourself. You had to be a writer, you had to be an artist, you had to be a idea person, you had to generate the story, all that. Like it's hard. And you have to know the rule set well enough to do it.
Yeah.
Nowadays, let's say you had all of those but didn't know the rules of the game, right? You just say, hey, generate me 3 NPCs. You can do it, right? So
yeah. AI is the only thing that ever makes me sort of think, oh, maybe I would have done a campaign.
Yeah, no, same here.
Because I would only, like all of the research that you have to do, you have to trying to create an encounter that is both winnable but challenging and fun, because you could kill everybody's character by accident. And that happens to GMs.
Yep.
The program out on paper, so to speak, to accomplish that on a tabletop game. In the same way, if I had to program that and to me that's work, and I'm trying to play this game to not have to go to work.
Yep.
I'm like, I love being a smarty pants engineer. I want to go do something different with my free time.
Who wants to role play what they do in their day job? Not me.
Yeah, exactly. I found AI to just be such a help aid with any of that stuff. If creatives choose to use it that way, I think they would find it very empowering.
But here's the next question, though. So if agentic AI can actually write those for you, if you can say, hey, write me a story or write me a full character, no input from you whatsoever, would you play it?
I would give it a try. Yeah, I don't know that I'd like it, but I think it would be an interesting experiment. I also think it would be a great way to get NPCs. And then you would be playing them if you were the GM, right? Like imagine if you actually had, because we do this a lot to our GMs, right? We go into, let's say, a tavern, and the tavern's full of people, and as the old story goes, GM just offhandedly made up a lady with blonde hair sitting at a table, and then they got to generate up a character right there because they just were trying to add a little side story, and you just went to the wrong direction of the room from what they had built the story on. And depending on how forgiving of that they want to be, they may try to wrangle you back over, but it can derail the story. But what if AI could help you and then say, give me a little piece of story that I want them to go. So it becomes more like choose your own adventure, but really the author still has full control of it, right? Because that's how a choose your own adventure sort of is. But in this case, you can have more nodes, to go out from. So the spider web can be bigger, but AI would help you with that. Sometimes it'll just come up with a ridiculously wild thing that you think it's like a 6-year-old possessed an adult to come up with that idea because it's just so outlandish, but also entirely beautifully, innocently creative, right? And you're like, I just want to flesh that out for a second. It's completely ridiculous, but I think it would, I think you get characters like that. I think you'd get some really funny characters mixing AI's weird shit that it comes up with an actual human being. I think it could be beautiful.
Yeah, well, the next question then after that is, should George R.R. Martin use it to just finish off his last 2 books that he's never going to finish? For Game of Thrones. Would you read it?
To be confession time, I actually never read them. I watched the series and was disappointed at the ending, but
Yep. Same.
But also that kind of ruined it for me. So I think having AI finish them might make me more prone to want to read them because I would be curious about the result of AI more so than, from what everybody who's read the book told me, he wrote like the series follows along so well that now I feel disinclined to read the books because I hated the ending and I'm not going to get a better one by reading the books. I'm just going to be doubly disappointed when I get there that it's still not finished.
All right, there it is. See, we've reached the point where AI can do a better job than we as humans. All right, awesome.
Yeah. But you take a look at the flip side of that. Somebody like Brandon Sanderson, I wonder if he's ever even tried to use AI because he's very making sure he writes, 100% of the words. And but he also has a huge network of people he talks to try to make sure that he respectfully creates characters of different, lifestyles and viewpoints. I don't know. I feel like the right human is still going to do a better job at that sort of stuff too. AI can only ever at least with how we interact with AI right now, I don't think AI has a good enough idea about humans necessarily. Right now, I mean, this will change daily, right? But that's how I've felt about some of the stuff that it writes. But I wonder if people, like Brandon Sanderson, have started working that into their tool set. I don't know. I think all these possibilities are going to happen and shake themselves out, in the coming years. There are going to be authors that are heavily AI assisted. There are going to be books written by AI that are probably bestsellers. There's already a shit ton of stuff on YouTube that says I composed this with AI.
Yeah.
And if they're meaning AI prompts, or they'll say this was prompt generated AI, and they'll put their copyright stuff on there. I have the rights to this. I used it. It was my vibe composition.
Yep.
You can't have it. So I mean, it's already happening. None of those people were going to hire an orchestra to do that to start with. So part of me is like, cool. But then now nobody's going to need to buy an orchestral version of a movie soundtrack that might put some money on, into the pockets of some musicians somewhere because they don't need to buy that soundtrack for the background of their D&D anymore. Yeah. Right. So.
And for bigger studios, I can see the ethical implication of that, but I'll tell you, smaller studios who don't have the budget to afford it, it is hard to get those things. The cost is prohibitive.
Yeah.
To do that, which is why you adopt it in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's just doing what they need to do to save a buck because we're capitalists and that's how we've been trained to be.
Yeah.
I know so many people who, I don't care how liberal or conservative they are, if they were walking the same path, running the same business, would do exactly the same steps.
Yep.
Same
here with me, but that was for music. I'm trying to tell a story. And when they're asking for $700 on a video that might make $5, I'm like, that does not make economical sense. I can't do it.
Yeah. And it's, it's just it's hard not to crack because it is, as much as it might be causing some graphic design studio somewhere to hire, how many other people are creating a bazillion things with it that are really good, need to be created, but they just wouldn't have the method to do it.
Yep.
Simultaneously, it's going to have good spots. It's going to have bad spots.
Yeah. I use the CGI example again. It's nowadays, if you want to be a movie producer, you expect that you're going to have a CGI department. to help you get through all the hard parts. And I always love that the example of the scene in Jurassic Park, where because it was prohibitively expensive at the time to make and probably technically impossible to make a T-Rex, But nowadays what they would do is show it coming closer. Back then they had to build all that tension, using practical props on set, on the actual set to make the scene work. And I can do that now. So
it is interesting. So I've seen some articles about that, because that is a similar kind of thing with AI, where there is an art in filmmaking that I don't think it's completely lost yet, because we're sitting here talking about it.
Yep.
But it's on the cusp of maybe becoming lost, where things like that, the lighting that you get from that scene as well, because there's no green screen.
Yep.
So, and because that's a beautiful example. So you've got these two kids, they're under a table, they're hiding, in a room, and you've got dinosaurs coming to get them, and the room is dark, and so the film itself is being pushed to even see stuff, right? When you fake darkness in front of a green screen, you lose that dramatic sort of lighting.
Yep.
And not everybody does it very well to put it back in. It looks fake a lot of times if they've done it with CGI. The things that you can see are being seen because some lighting expert very painstakingly lit it up right at the right exact amount for you to notice it. So everything about that scene, from what I noticed to what I don't notice, has been thought about in an analog way. And it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. And they do things like shake the camera, hit the camera. They do that, Star Trek. And that made you feel the footsteps, and so you could almost feel like you were there in their shoes doing that. But why not have both?
Yep.
Still hire people that can do all those things and do them. The big companies still should be doing that. In a perfect world, I think if we'd ever get there, again, it would be less about doing a job for meeting needs, because society has created a way that we don't have to the work is being done in the background to feed us and to make us survive. And healthcare, I mean, imagine the impacts of AI with every doctor being multiplied by 10 or 20. Is that going to make healthcare faster, more affordable? I hope so. I really do. So, well, the fact that cost comes down, would it level the playing field? I mean, AI could do that for us, possibly.
It's an interesting question. And agentic AI, could it replace doctors?
Yeah. I don't know if they would replace doctors, but I think it would become the number one tool.
I mean, we gotta when we have symptoms, we search it on Google before we decide we have to go to the doctor.
But then one of my favorite Star Trek characters is AI, and he is a doctor, and he did replace all the doctors. I think it'll happen. There's going to be some careers that I think will start just being both. I hope medical careers are one of those, because I feel like if the whole point of medicine is to perpetuate healthier humans, that we'd want to leave humans involved in that. Having the ability to stretch all of those humans further with AI in a way that in some weird way makes it more humane. I mean,
you know what? Awesome. Just a thought. There are certain areas of the world where healthcare is lacking. Maybe that's your alternative.
Yeah. I mean, send in a bunch of bots. I mean,
better than not having them, even if they're not going to give the best diagnosis.
Yeah. Or just we all know the medical field is dying for people. That's why we've started coming up with careers that do certain things that used to only be doctors. So now we have physician's assistants. Now we have nurse practitioners. A lot of those generalization things have become a different level of education or whatever. And I think you'll see some of that stuff start extending into robotics and AI and all of that, because it will just help them get through more people faster. I don't know. I have a lot of optimism in the medical side.
Main question there is time frame.
Oh, gosh. It's already being used for research and other things like that. So I think within the next year or two, we'll probably start seeing a lot of that cancer research thing. Stuff like that will happen faster. I think. I hope I live long enough, and I hope that AI goes the path that it's not, that it's melded into our society in a safe way, that we can all just get along. I'm an optimist. That's why I like Star Trek.
Yeah. Hopefully you're not giving that to Skynet. Give it the data.
Yeah, totally. We've modeled it after our brain, which is scary. Stuff that pops into our skulls at weird times of night that we would admit to no one. That because, we're actually good people, we wouldn't do it. But some people do choose to act on them. And I think, like if AI becomes sentient, there's going to be some AI that's evil. Maybe that's our hope. Balance the equation between the bad AI, just like good humans try to help battle the equation between bad humans. That's way too heavy.
All right. Well, we've been talking about this for hours.
Yes.
Any closing thoughts? Agentic AI was the topic. I know we talked about a lot. We talked a lot about Star Trek. And we just talked about generative AI a bunch too.
I mean, they're all hand in hand at this point. I don't think agentic AI has evolved. I feel like it's just generative AI.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I think in the next few months, it's going to be very interesting to see how it all evolves, because it's not going to take long, like for it to start worming its way into everything. I've already been at work where people have talked about reports that they've run with their agent AIs. So it's already just in what has it only been out for a few weeks that it's been kind of mass available. People are already adopting it and using it. Definitely here to stay. It'll be interesting to see who wins the kind of race to building us very useful platforms on top of it.
It's a good point. And I'll give my side of it. Having the chance to actually not just use them, but to build a couple of them. I've seen the value in it. It's got, before it gets to a point where it's universally adopted, I think there's still a lot of technical challenges that still have to be worked through. I think the examples you showed earlier are good at showing that it's definitely on its way here to stay. I think your time frame on it is compelling. Do I think it's going to, be the doom and gloom story of if you don't adopt this, your business is going to fail? I don't think that's true.
No.
I know I didn't talk a lot about it during this one, but if we want to ever do a podcast and talk more about the business side of it, I could give you my opinion. But I mean, the short summary of that is, I don't know of a single company that failed or went bankrupt, and their reason was we can't compete against generative AI. And if no company is going bankrupt for that, I don't think agentic AI is going to do it. I think you might not be as maybe profitable, or you might not be as fast, but it doesn't kill your business. And so to that end, but I do think it's a great supplement. Again, the scenarios you showed and talked about, I think are excellent examples. I've got cases where we've got it to do predictive modeling by itself. And I think that was incredibly helpful. A human would have done it eventually, but now I've got an agent, or the agentic AI portion of the code we built is doing it for us, which is, it's just a different way of doing it. But I don't think the doom and gloom stories is true. That's my opinion on it right now.
Yeah.
I do think it's here to stay, as you said.
Yeah.
And I think that it's going to become a ubiquitous part of everything that we do.
Everybody's always months and years out of like all the stuff on the list of things to do, right?
Oh, yeah.
And still put more work on one human being, even though the one human being has no tools to do all the work. So having experienced that at every job I've ever had, we're still not going to change too much in the near future and kind of change the flavor of what any given job is. There was a transition from using typewriters to computers. There's going to be like this transition of doing traditional internet research versus the computer, the AI doing research for you and saving you the time and effort of doing it, because, now you can move on to the next thing on your ginormous task list to do. You can eliminate things faster, and you haven't spent a lot of time in it. Most businesses will find cost savings in that way, in that they won't necessarily have to go down roads as far or spend as many man hours sussing stuff out. Eventually, because the jobs will kind of change, I do think it will affect what the job landscape looks like.
Yes.
But I feel like in a lot of ways, some people will lose jobs because their job is evolving in a way that makes them obsolete. It's an emotionless way of looking at the problem, but that's been true of every innovation since the beginning of history.
Yep. I think the big winners on this are going to be two groups. One, the individuals who are using this, I think will benefit greatly, especially, those people who maybe don't have the full skill set in order to like generate their own ideas. Now they've got a way of doing it. I think that's going to be I think they're going to benefit the most. I think second to that, the companies obviously who are already playing in this space, who have already kind of carved out their corner of it, I think they're the ones that are going to continue to lead this and kind of monopolize the industry. And I think that's going to be that way for a while. And I think anyone who's now trying to get into this AI world or this agentic AI world going forward is going to struggle unless they're adopting the tools that already exist from the big players who are already there. Those who I think are the big players. Those are the big winners, at least in the next maybe 1 to 5 years.
I think so. I'd agree with that. It's going to be interesting to see it. I was around for the internet being birthed, right? I'm old enough to have seen that one. And that just changed everything fundamentally, And then cell phones were then the next thing that really fundamentally changed how everyone interacts with one another.
And then smartphones.
Yeah, smartphones. Well, I think that's what I kind of meant by the cell phones. Regular cell phones changed things a little bit. But when we all just became connected through the internet at all times, like
yes, that was the changer.
Like we used to sit around and just be bored.
Yeah. What do you mean? You actually went out to parks and talked to people? What is this?
Yeah. I hope this thing doesn't end up being as scary as some people think it is.
All right. Well, it's been fun. Well, thank you very much, Inner Urge, for your time today.
Yeah. Thanks, Sprite Monkey. Sprite your monkey.
I will be spreading many monkeys. Maybe.
All righty.
Okay.
I'll see you later.
All right. See ya.